Hello and welcome to this review. I am, of course, Truff, David Campbell. It's lovely to see you all there. Don't forget to go and check out all of the content from First Time Films. It's over on Spotify. You can check out the rest of the stuff on this YouTube channel, Full Time Football as well as FTTV. Now, the lead up to awards season, obviously, we will be doing a lot more of these shorter form reviews. But if you have seen Malcolm and Marie, put a wee comment in on the Facebook page. We are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, and we'll flash your comments up as I go. But Malcolm and Marie is ultimately a movie I quite enjoyed, to be honest with you. It's directed by Sam Levinson. It stars John David Washington and Zendaya, and it follows this couple. The guy has just had his film premiere that night. They come back and they're waiting the first reviews really hitting in. And it's an interesting concept, it's an interesting premise. I want to get into the positives first before I go into anything else. The acting I thought from the two leads in this was outstanding, to be honest with you. I thought John David Washington, haven't seen him in much, to be honest with you. The only film I've seen him in before this was Tenet, and I very much enjoyed his performance in that movie. I thought he carried himself well. He's allowed to show more personality in this movie, I feel. He's allowed to show more of himself. Whether the character is likable enough for that to be effective, I don't know. We will get into the script later. But in terms of what John David Washington was asked to deliver with his character, he pulls through in spades, and he doesn't shy away from this dialogue. Don't forget, this movie is, what it says in the tin, is just Malcolm and Marie, and the way he tackles some of the dialogue that's given to him, the range and emotion that he manages to portray, his facial expressions in this movie, quite contrastingly to Tennant, are very effective as well. He is fantastic, but truly the star of this movie is Zendaya. I can't say enough good things about Zendaya. Obviously, I knew her from way back in the day. She was on a show on Disney Channel called Shake It Up that was on that network. So I've been very much aware of Zendaya from a young age, and you've seen her star slowly rise over the last couple of years in the mainstream sense. You know, playing MJ in the new Spider-Man, the MCU Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland. Obviously, a role in The Greatest Showman to come, and Sam Levinson's TV show Euphoria was really her breakout performance. But this shows what she can do. This shows that she's ready to go on to that next level, to take things up to that next pedestal. And I think Zendaya is definitely one to watch out for. There's a particular scene in this movie where her character herself is putting on an acting performance, and Zendaya is completely convincing, like so good at that role, so convincing in that part, that you as an audience are on the side of Malcolm in that moment, like, oh my god, is she being serious, is she kidding on? I thought Zendaya was nothing more, nothing less than electric in her performance here. Absolutely electric. So that's one of the key positives of the movie, is the performance of John David Washington and Zendaya in this one. The visual style of the movie, the visual construction of it, the cinematography, I thought was very good in terms of the composition of the shots. Don't forget, these one location movies, I think, can be really hard to pull off. And I think that Levinson does well, as did as Marcel Rev, and navigating their way around this space to making sure that everything does feel full. It feels like you're getting a full theatrical experience. You know, the use of shots was excellent. The composition of shots was fantastic. I can't deny that. And whoever the location scout is definitely deserves some plaudits as well, because that house they were in was absolutely sublime. It was wonderful. The only other thing that I would question when it comes to that and lead into the negatives of the movie, I don't understand why this movie had to be shot in black and white or had to be shown in black and white. To me, it doesn't really add anything. I suppose it's just a stylistic choice at the end of the day, but to me, I was a bit like, it just feels pretentious, and I think that's mainly the problem that I have with the script and the screenplay of this movie. I think, despite the performances carrying this a lot of the time to something that is very much watchable, the screenplay gets in its way a ton. It gets in its own way a ton. There's points where it's hard to tell if Sam Levinson was wanting to make a film or if he was just wanting to have a Socratic dialogue of himself. To be honest, some of the comments he makes about cinema and the film industry, and in particular about film critics and film criticism, just tend to bleed too much into a director or a screenwriter being more focused on what they want their movie to say, or what they want to say, or what they want their message to be, rather than making a good film in and of itself. And I think that's the main problem with Malcolm and Marie. There's a point where Malcolm gets a positive review in for his movie from a critic he doesn't like, and begins to tear apart the critic's positive review. And it's hard to, and you could say like, oh, that's not Sam Levinson, maybe it is just the character of Malcolm. But since this movie's came out, Sam Levinson himself is now criticised several film critics for misreading the film and misunderstanding the film and hitting out against them in a similar way to the character of Malcolm. So by doing that, he invites this criticism, and it does solidify that argument to me that Levinson got, for lack of a better term, a bit too far up his own arse with the screenplay in this one. On top of that, the central relationship in this movie is very hard to watch at times. It is an extremely toxic, poisonous relationship that the two of them have. And despite the fact that the dialogue is entertaining, and like I've said, the actors, I can't commend them enough for how they've pulled it off, there's no positive resolution by the end of the film to this relationship. We don't really know more about what the future holds for these two characters by the end of the story than we did going in. What the nature of this relationship truly is. At times, this movie says a lot. There's a ton of dialogue, but it goes away ultimately saying nothing. So that is why I would suggest ultimately to sort of wrap up this review. I know it's a very speedy review, but it's a very hard movie to nail down. I would just say that this ultimately the strength of this movie and what this movie will be remembered for is another strong performance for John David Washington, really putting Zendaya on that awards level map in terms of an actress. But I think Sam Levinson really needs to just focus on creating a good narrative in the future and trying to steer clear of these dialogue driven films where he gets in his own way a lot of the time, and like I said, focuses too heavily on trying to get across the message that he wants to get across and getting across what he wants to say through these characters, rather than letting these characters breathe on their own. So that's my thoughts on Malcolm and Marie. What do you think? Leave them in the comments below. We'll be back with more of these reviews as more of the award season movies come out. Like I said, this is a really hard review to do. I wasn't quite sure how to place this film because there's really, really high highs, and the lows of it just really drag it down. But I hope you enjoy Malcolm and Marie if you do go and watch it, and maybe a bit more than I did. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.